Hello, everyone, and welcome to AP US History for Winners with your teacher, Mr. Johnson. This is our very first video of the year, and it begins our journey of learning about the entirety of US history. I am so excited to share all of this with you. It's going to be an awesome ride. Today, we're going to begin by talking about Native American societies before European contact. So, if you are ready, let's begin. We're basically going to, in this slideshow, break down different groups and regions of Native Americans in America and talk about what makes them special or unique. And the first area we're going to talk about is the American Southwest. And the very first bullet here on these notes, the very first term here, maize, is incredibly important. So make sure you're starring this one, make sure you're understanding it. So maize, also corn, you can see pictured on the top right, spreads from Mexico to the American Southwest, and it dramatically is going to change Native American societies because it supports the increase of economic development and permanent settlements. And these concepts are really important. AP College Board loves to talk about maize and its impact on Native Americans. So, in terms of economic development, because they're able to bring maize north, Native Americans are able to have organized towns, trade networks, and farming systems. And so, we're going to see complex societies develop in these areas. This is much different than the quote unquote uncivilized people that the early European settlers, tried to make Native Americans seem like. Native Americans have complex societies. They are very civilized. Another idea here is the permanent settlements that come about because of, in part, the growth of corn and of maize. We're going to see large amounts of people living in these settlements because they're able to live near where they're farming. And the best example I have for you is Tenochtitlan, which is the capital of the Aztec Empire in present day Mexico. And this is a city with over 250,000 people in various social classes. Another characteristic of Native American groups in the Southwest is irrigation. So they're able to take water from the rivers, bring it towards where they want to farm, and again, build these permanent settlements. And we can see an example on the bottom right of the Pueblos in the Rio Grande, and we can see the type of housing that they have. And last, the idea of Native Americans in the Southwest of social diversification. They have less hunting and gathering, and they are more focused again on farming and then having these permanent settlements in different classes that are made up in these settlements. The next group area we're going to talk about is the Great Basin and the Great Plains. And these are the regions that these make up. The Great Basin, when you hear that term, you can think of like Nevada and Utah. This is a very dry region. And the Great Plains, which is basically the middle of present day United States, like North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, northern Texas. And these are at this time major grasslands. And so, one really important concept, another one to star, is the idea that Native Americans all over, but especially we can see an example here, are going to respond to their environment. And whatever they're living, whatever the environment is around them, that's how they're going to adapt how they live. So, for these regions, we can see that Native Americans need to become more mobile because of the amount of bison and sheep that are in these areas, and they're going to hunt them for food. Now, before European contact, Native Americans don't have access to horses, but I know a lot of people, when they're thinking of Native Americans and hunting bison, like in this picture on the bottom right, we think about Native Americans riding horses to do so. And we'll talk more about this in future lessons, but this is a huge change for Native Americans when horses are introduced. It makes it much easier to hunt bison. They don't have to follow them. It's much easier to follow them around and the herds of bison around. And it creates stronger military forces for the Native Americans. And again, they're needing to be mobile because there's less natural resources in these areas. They're needing to hunt, they're needing to gather and move to where the food is. Again, responding to their environment. All right, the third area we're going to talk about is we're going to combine some areas here, but it's the Northeast, the Mississippi River Valley, and the Atlantic Seaboard. All right, and so in these areas, the main characteristic of these areas is going to be a mix of agriculture, farming, and hunting and gathering, but with permanent villages. Again, permanent villages in these areas. So in the Northeast, Famous example is the Iroquois in New York and Pennsylvania. They are adapting to their environment, just like all these Native American groups. One example is they're burning forests for hunting and farming, which they're also farming maize. Okay, and they have a matriarchal society, meaning their family lineages follow down from the women in their society. In the Mississippi River Valley, the best example I have for you is the Cahokia Indians near St. Louis. And again, they are part of a large permanent settlement. And this permanent settlement idea, I'm hoping it's sticking with you because it's really important. The idea that Native American societies are able to build up large areas where people are living consistently. And you can see that pictured here on the top right of this photo, of this slide. The last idea here is the Atlantic seaboard, or the last area. And another group here I have for you is the Algonquins in New England. They have smaller permanent villages, but again, still permanent villages, and they're hunting, they're fishing because they're near the water, and they have this idea that they're growing called the Three Sisters. You can see pictures here on the right, and this is corn, beans, and squash that they're all growing together because they grow together very nicely. They put nutrients back into the soil to help each other grow. And so, again, they're adapting to their environment and using what they have around them to make life as good as possible. And then the last group we'll talk about for today is the Northwest in present day California, the last region. And Native Americans in this region are going to be supporting themselves by hunting and gathering and also fishing. And this should make sense, right? The Pacific Ocean is right nearby, so fishing has become very important for these groups of people. One group of people to learn about is the Chinookan peoples, and they have a long warrior tradition. They actually took slaves in war. They built longhouses with their big cedar trees that are around them. So they have huge trees that are around them. So it makes sense that they're taking these trees and making that into the type of housing that they have that house many families living all together. And again, main theme, taking their environment, adapting to it, and that goes into how their societies are structured. Okay, so that is it for our notes on Native American societies before European contact. Now, every time we end notes this year, we're going to have this slide with some big ideas. And these questions are going to help you summarize the most important information from the notes. And it's really important that we answer these questions so that we understand what we need to take away in a big way, and then making sure we're applying those specific examples as well. So make sure you're always writing these down. So for today, we got number 1. How and why did various native populations in the period before European contact interact with the natural environment? So try to explain that in a general way, but also give some specific examples. And number 2, what impact did maize cultivation have on native populations? Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.